Guys, Emilie got massively buffed, so today I'll go over what changed and how good she is now. Let's go. So first of all, let me tell you that this is not an Arlecchino situation. Her changes are not messy, they're very clear and so are her improvements. Just to contextualize what I'm going to say, let me explain you the basics of her kit. Emilie can mainly do damage through two types of attacks, her elemental skill and her elemental burst. The burst will make a lot of dendro attacks rain down from the sky to hit your opponents in quick succession. It kinda works like Ganyon's elemental burst, although Emilie is much quicker as it lasts for just around 3 seconds. The main similarity here is that the burst will hit more times if you're facing more than one opponent. In fact, the way it is now, a single opponent can only be targeted by 4 of the attacks, while the burst can do 10 in total during its duration. This means that even if you're facing just 2 opponents, the burst will deal much more damage. Then, the elemental skill will throw a dendro attack at your opponent every second and a half. The skill will last for 22 seconds and it gets stronger if the opponent is afflicted by burning. Basically, if the opponent is burning, the skill will level up after a few seconds and start dealing more damage. Also, every 4 seconds at minimum, burning will enable her first passive to trigger an extra dendro attack that is very powerful. And essentially this is all she does. In the latest Genshin beta, all of these abilities received a significant increase in terms of damage. And as a result, Emilie received one of the single biggest buffs I've ever seen in betas. Overall, Emilie received around a 20% damage increase across the board, which is honestly absurd if you think about it. And that's because even before the buffs occurred, in my opinion, she was already good enough in her niche, so the burning niche, to make teams we would typically underestimate pretty competitive. The thing is, her damage was pretty high, even in situations where she wasn't getting many buffs. Not over the top high, but high enough to compete with other sub-DPS when they are in far more optimal scenarios. This originally made her promising in all those teams that could integrate burning well, but now she's looking like a bit more than that. Anyway, another thing they changed is that they removed the anti-synergy she had with Quicken. In fact, before she had a lot of things in her kit that nerfed her damage if she triggered Quicken, but now all of that is gone. This is not only good for her damage potential on different teams, but it also makes her more versatile during the gameplay. Even in the scenario where you don't play a Quicken teams with Emilie, there are enemies in the game that apply Electro to themselves, and in those situations Emilie will deal massively less damage. So them removing this anti-synergy with Quicken removes these flaws she previously had even on burning teams. But regardless, the more important thing at hand is Emilie now good on Quicken teams? The answer is yes and no. In a technical sense, the synergy is still not there, because even though they removed damage nerfs from Quicken, she still needs burning applied on opponents to enable half of her kit. She's playable, I guess, but she will basically be missing out on half of her damage. So is the Quicken dream dead? Not quite, but before I talk about it, let me remind you that if you enjoy my channel but you haven't subbed yet, please consider doing so because it really makes me notice your support, and also go check my Watering Waves channel. Emilie needs burning to deal great damage, and apparently she can get it on Quicken teams. Well, this is what you will think. There is already a pretty well-known way to make Quicken and burning coexist on a team, and that's the quick burn composition. The concept of it is really simple, just play a pyro applier on your Quicken team. But TGS, won't Quicken remove burning from the opponents? Well, yeah, but not in the way you think. When burning is applied, it steadily consumes the dendro aura and the eventual Quicken status from the target. Once it completely consumes them, they're gone, but it's not instant. This means that in this scenario, even if burning is active, you can trigger a lot of aggravate and spreads. Still, burning eventually consuming Quicken is a problem, because if Quicken is gone, then so is your dendro and electro damage. However, on these compositions, this doesn't actually happen a lot. That's because if pyro is applied on the opponents, the electro character will keep triggering overload on them, which removes the burning aura. So the burning uptime on these teams is actually not that high, and as a result the Quicken status is pretty consistent. Of course, it's a matter of applications too, because if you use a very fast pyro applier on the team like Ling, for example, in tandem with somebody like Cookie as the electro applier, the burning will be very frequent on opponents. Typically, the stronger your electro application is, the better this team becomes. And this kind of begs the question, if burning becomes inconsistent, doesn't Emilie's damage take a hit? Yeah, I guess, but not quite as much as if burning wasn't there at all, and anyway, Quicken helps her out as well, so it's a trade-off kinda thing. I'm a fan of the Sino, Fischl, Emilie, Thoma team, which is pretty competitive with the other Quicken Sino teams. It doesn't come close to his Quick Bloom variants, but as far as Quicken goes, it's pretty good. The advantage compared to the Nahida variants is that Emilie does pretty well in the multi-wave scenarios. That's a situation where Nahida struggles because her elemental skill effects end when the opponents she marked get killed. After this happens, unless she goes back on field to use the elemental skill again, her contribution for the rest of the rotation is pretty minimal. But unfortunately, since Sino can swap out during his burst duration, this is not possible. On the flip side, Emilie's elemental skill stays up for a total of 22 seconds, hitting targets on a range that is almost as big as the entire Abyss room. And all in all, this makes her a pretty interesting Sino support. Speaking more in general, Fischl and Thoma are a pretty good core for quick burn teams, because Fischl is a better Electro player than Thoma is a Pyro player. This means that you can make pretty much every Quicken team starting from this duo. For example, you can make an Alhaitham quick burn team without Nahida, which is kinda interesting to me because Nahida is commonly strapped to Alhaitham. The good thing about Thoma, other than his Pyro application and his shielding, is that he can hold the deep food set. Thoma's burst hits pretty frequently, so he can apply Dendro resistance reduction quite consistently. In theory, it's good, but there are more practical issues compared to the Sino composition. Burning is quite the AoE elemental reaction in that many opponents will get burned if they stay near to each other, while Fischl's Electro application is pretty much single target locked. This means that in situations where you're facing a lot of opponents, a lot of them will stay burning and just the primary target will have Quicken consistently on. In these cases, Quicken won't realistically be consistent, which doesn't happen on the Sino teams because Sino is an on-field Electro player that hits opponents in an AoE range, so it will disrupt burning on all of them. So you could say that in that sense, Sino teams are more practical to use. What a day to be alive, honestly. Sino team feeling more convenient than an Alhaitham team. But either way, burning being more active isn't necessarily bad, because the burning damage won't be that low with Alhaitham being the trigger of them and him building elemental mastery, and also Emilie's damage benefits from it. So, for Alhaitham, Emilie is a good alternative to the Nahida Quicken teams. For the rest, so for other teams, she's just an improved version of what I initially had. So for example, for the newbie LED team people were very interested in, she got a bit better. The other video said that the team could have some inconsistency in making newbie LED vape because Emilie's Dendro application is not as good as Nahida, so you won't have burning as consistently. But the thing I believe many people underestimate is that Xiangling is so good at applying Pyro that she can even make newbie LED vape by herself. Burning is a nice supplement, and it's good to make the vapes even more consistent, but it's not really needed, I would say. Like, for this composition in particular, I think it does more for Emilie's damage than it does for newbie LED's damage, honestly. Then, for the others, Grizzly Burn Melt got better, Arlecchino Monopyro got better. I'm only showing you one example for each archetype because it kinda stays the same for every alternative, like if you replace Arlecchino with Line, it's kind of the same thing. The gist of it is that Emilie stays a very competitive meta option on all the teams that can seamlessly integrate burning, regardless of which unit you decide to use. Like, if you replace Grizzly with Ganyu, it's the same thing, it's still good. If you replace Arlecchino with Line, Klee or whatever, it's still good. I just haven't calculated all of the variants because I haven't had the time, sorry. And overall, I would say that Emilie is shaping up to be a very strong meta release, one of the strongest Dendro unit we ever got. Like, before she was pretty restricted, very strong in her niche, but still kind of restricted. While now they basically removed most of her flaws, because she's kinda good on Quicken teams in a way, so I think when she'll come out, she'll be a very useful pull. I also like that her quality of life is just on point, like her elemental skill feels very plug and play to use, because it lasts for 22 seconds at rotation, and it has a very wide range, so she basically has all the stuff that Yai wished she would have. She feels like a properly modern unit. I really like her state at the moment. Still, I'm skipping for Natalan releases. And with this, I'm done for today. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe and also go check the Furina guide I made a few days ago. Bye bye.